I am a teacher, and I'm very proud of being a teacher. One of the things that this has allowed me to do is tackle a number of issues. We've had a lot of people recently who have not been able to reach this integrated education that we've been talking about. At my school, North Carolina State, this semester, we've had many people who have unfortunately decided to end their lives because they have not had the privilege to learn what we're learning here. And I decided as a result to become a mental health first aid responder. So in addition to the zillion things that we do as teachers, I decided I was going to try to combat this issue of how people take care of themselves. And so in this talk, which is sort of, as Kathy pointed out to me in the chat, something that I've been sort of very interested in relationship to developing a program through ERIE on mental health and getting more resources towards people taking care of themselves. I'm going to give a little bit of what I learned. I've learned that the taking care of yourself is not simple. The integration of it is really based on these factors right here, these 8 factors: intellectual, emotional, environmental, occupational, community, physical, financial, and spiritual. All of them are very, very, very important. And I'm going to just give you my sense of them in relationship to the individual. Intellectual. We are what we think. Many of us forget, and I did as a child myself. I thought that the factors that were coming at me from the society really defined me. And so it caused me to think in a very certain way. My thoughts are real, right? If you look at the ancient philosophers, they talk about how it is actually the thought that then translates to the word, that translates then to the action and to the reality that we're in. So what I learned as a mental health responder is that we can be overwhelmed. We can come to the point where we really believe that we are not that good, or that we are not really meriting human beings. Whatever we get, we don't deserve it. And so a lot of us can become desperate. And this is where a lot of things have to change in order for us to realize, to be integrated in self-care. And so in regard to the thoughts that we use to define us, and we really want to use good thoughts, but a lot of times we then feel the need to reach out, right? Emotional, right? How to make a connection in a sort of a heart sense. A lot of times people that we interact with don't have high emotional quotients, right? EQs, or they don't really know how to sympathize. So it's up to us, as people through this education, right? Through mental health education or the education at ERIE, to connect to people in a way that allows your EQ to really overcome the situation. Because a lot of times human beings react in ways that may not come across well. And then if we choose to react in the same way, nothing can come of it. It's very, very, very difficult. And so in essence, this is a very important component. And this is probably my favorite book. It's called The Little Prince. If you haven't read it, it's a beautiful little book. The environment. This is something that I work in as a teacher. I teach chemistry. And so I recognize the importance of the environment and self-care. I am a green chemist by my field. That means I care about what the world offers us in terms of its science and how we use that science that we've talked about in this beautiful session. We have to take care of it. My dear friend Joseph Royce, who's a forester, showed me so many times how beautiful it is to walk in the Hoffman Forest, which is here in North Carolina, a forest 80,000 acres roughly. And just to be in there, it's such a deep connection. And I don't know how we forsake that, but we shouldn't. In terms of self-care, this is something we need to do, because I learned that the connection to nature really helps very much heal. Community. We are one, right? I mean, you've heard that all over the place. You can't turn around without having some philosopher tell us that. But in reality, if you can get through the emotional, the intellectual, the environment, it comes down to this greater part. This is the next layer, understanding that we are part of a greater system, right? And if we don't acknowledge it, being alone it leads you to thoughts of depression and maybe things that you shouldn't even think about or do. So it's very important to consider community and mental health. And then, within that, of course, what do you do? I don't think any of us should ever think about, like I did when I was a child, let's get a job that makes us millions and millions of dollars, because I know that doesn't support mental health at all. All occupational does in this greater integration of connection is allow you to do something constructive, productive. We all want to feel like we're doing something creative. And the only way it should define you is it gives you an opportunity to work. And work is very important, right? Because without work, we don't feel like we're contributing to community, right? To society, to the last factor that I talked about. And then ultimately, in terms of all of this, this is a thing that we don't think about too often, but we need to, from the beginning, intellectual, thinking about your thoughts. Your thoughts can hurt you, certainly, right? I mean, you can get to a point of stress where your body is dying. And we don't want that because, in community, each of us has to work together. We're, a cog in this great system. And so take care of yourself. Always treat yourself right, eat right, and exercise, etc. Drink water. And then, of course, one of the basis things, money, like I just said, in job, you don't do it for the money, but the money's going to be there. And obviously, how much it's going to be there, a lot of people in the world are ruled by it. I mean, there's been famous people that have basically made it clear that money can be your God. And you don't want that. We know that will ultimately lead to a complete breakdown, not only of yourself, but of society, as we're seeing. And then finally, I just decided I just made this up. We are more than we imagine, right? So we're spiritual. This is probably one of the least considered in all of the factors, but it's the most important, which is an interesting irony, of course, the inversion. Spirit is really about things that we can't even understand or talk about really in society, but it's about touching something more than, beyond the imagination. And I think the only other thing is I wanted to just share very quickly just this little chart. So this little chart here, this is the integration. So you see all of the factors, intellectual, I don't know, can you see this? No, you can't see this, sorry. Okay, let me shoot, I've got to resume share. No, that's not what I want. Back to new share. That's what I want. Okay, this one. Okay, now you can see that. Okay, so yeah, so this is what I just shared, the intellectual, emotional, environmental, physical, occupational, community, financial, and then finally spiritual. And that's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Lucian. Friends, what an honor, what a treat to have him deliver such a fantastic talk on short notice. By the way, as part of his credentials, yes, he is a professor, distinguished professor of green chemistry, Quilly University of Technology. And he's currently serving as a professor in the Department of Forest Biomaterials, Wood and Paper Science, and Chemistry, and as a faculty in the programs of Fiber and Polymer Science and Environmental Sciences at North Carolina State University. His laboratory, the Laboratory of Soft Materials and Green Chemistry, probes fundamental materials science topics focused on the green chemistry of renewable polymers. He received his Ph.D. in organic chemistry from the University of Florida for modeling photoinduced charge separation states of novel Rhenium based organic metallic ensemble as the first order of approximation of photosynthesis. So we thank you, Lucian, for stepping in. And friends, do we have any questions for Lucian right now? We'll hand it over to Ernest, see if we have any questions. Otherwise, we can send them to him later. He'll be eager to answer.
Yes, you are aware, first of all, Lucian, my dear friends, that I know you for a long period of time. Superior presentation. Thank you so much. I will take this presentation and will definitely offer to my management. It's my workplace to hire you as a consultant. Okay, with such credentials. Okay, listen, you are already not only USA but international professional already. I believe since the presentation was just posted and not too much questions I see here on the screen, I would suggest that who is actually currently connected, please ask the question directly to Lucian. Okay, I would like to thank you very much. Tremendous presentation. Every time we learn something new. Great job.
I do have a question, Lucian, because we have a few minutes. Oh, and Miriam does. Miriam, you please go ahead first.
Mine isn't so much of a question as a thank you, because this topic is so important. People can't learn, they can't connect without the mental health aspect. And I think it's wonderful that you went through that training, because there's a real need, not just in colleges, but all over. So I want to thank you for that beautiful presentation. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Any other questions? Well, I wanted to ask you, big picture, being on the university campus, what shift are you seeing in your students these days in terms of receptivity to this approach? And have you seen a change over time? Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant question. Thank you, Nan. I'm very sensitive to the students that we have. As I don't know, most teachers may recognize, I don't know at the university setting, I think students are not treated fairly. I think a university these days, I don't know how it's like around the world, but in the United States, they're just a front for like business that other people do. A lot of the teachers they don't really care to teach or to really connect to students. And so I think the students are lost. And I think because as teachers, we're not doing our jobs, students are very depressed and sad. And when you do offer them an integration, like when I talk to them about green chemistry and say, oh my goodness, this is how it relates to the environment. This is how it relates to society, to finances. And then God help me if I do mention spirit, I have to be careful, right? But I do it in a different way. I feel the students really light up, because they really want to see this, why am I spending thousands of dollars to be here just to learn an equation, right? So I think integrated education is absolutely essential. I mean, I'm at a service university or a land grant university where we're supposed to teach students from the state of North Carolina how to be good members of society, and we're not doing a good job. And so integral education is absolutely essential. Great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Such a moving and heartwarming answer. All right, friends, any other questions? Otherwise, Lucian will take off this hat and put on his hat as moderator again to introduce our next guest.
Awesome. That was beautiful.
All right. Thank you, Lucian.
Thank you, Nan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's a beautiful group, and I'm happy to be here. So